Hello, everyone. This is an interesting launch. I've seen launches like this before, but this one seems to take the cake. And I figured I'd take a few minutes because I need to work with Triad this weekend, but I wanted to add some thoughts, basic thoughts on what's going on with the Luna, now Luna Classic, versus Luna, now affectionately referred to as 2.0, and things that were observed and things brought to my attention and things that are happening. Let's jump right into this if we shall. I wanted to show what's going on here with this business. Here's a couple of things. We have a number of people that we chat with that follow different currencies, and here's what we see. On the various charts, we try to look for patterns. We try to look for different things that stand out in a crowd, right? The number one thing that we're showing is the new shiny, the 2.0. Here's what we saw. Of course, we had an initial pump rise all the way up to $12, settled back down on sell pressure, started trading sideways. The sell, though, when we looked at how much sell is going on, we saw that there was, okay, maybe there's an opportunity. And as we chatted it with people, it seemed like they agreed. So then when we looked at LUNC, I think that's a terrible acronym, but LUNC, Classic. Classic, if I zoom out, maintained its same behavior, sell off, major sell off, and then start trading sideways. This told us something's going on because things didn't go as expected. Things didn't go as we thought they should go, where we would see a mass sell-off of one of the two. Now with Luna, the shiny, when we looked at the order book to try to wrap our heads around what might be happening, we saw what we can only describe as a form of forced arbitrage. When the new Luna released, they did the airdrop as they promised to people to let them know, here's what we got for you. And people were kind of disappointed in what they were getting. They didn't get what they expected to get. So when this releases, there's an assumption it's going to have major sell-off because people didn't get what they thought they were getting. This affects people who bought in after the attack. Wasn't an attack. It was intentional. Regardless, if you had millions and millions of Luna after the attack because you bought off the dip, you probably ended up with a single token, a single coin, a single something, 1, 2 to 10, maybe a couple 20s, depending on how much you bought in, because some people bought a lot. Many people who bought then sold for the profits and they made off like bandits and didn't stay in it. Others might have held on and waited to see what was going to happen with the classic and the net new. So as you look at the order book here, you see that there's very little Luna that's being exchanged. It's small increments of Luna. This is because not many people got a lot of it, and very few people bought in after it launched beyond that initial pump and dump. Does this mean that it won't recover? I don't think that at this point we can say. I will point out, if you look at the volume up top here, it's still less than 100 million in 24-hour volume, and the amount of Luna being exchanged is significantly lower, and this is because the supply of this is initially constrained. There's less of the new Luna than there was in the prior. There's a vesting schedule. They're releasing these, kind of dripping them out over time. The vesting affects the total supply, but it also affects the amount that you would have gotten in airdrop. So there's more coins that people got issued to them, but they're being withheld, better appropriately said, from you based on dough rug pulls mental, let's go ahead and just hold back people's money. Here's where this all went south. Analysis was done by Fat Man. Fat Man is part of the Terra Foundation research group, whatever that, to keep an eye on Terra. And there's been a falling out between Fat Man and Doe Rug Pull. And Fat Man discovered, along with other people, that millions and millions of Luna, the new Luna, was dropped to very sketchy people. Now, I haven't been in this ecosystem. I'm following it simply because I have people that follow the show, podcast, or YouTube, who have been in or are in one of these two, UST or Luna. And as a result, I wanted to kind of say, let me do a little bit of coverage on what I see, graph movements, price movements, the situation. I saw some people, they said there was a mirror breach. I don't know what that means, but they said it was a mirror breach, $88 million. The scammer apparently was dropped over 2 million Luna, the new Luna, by this airdrop. There's one of two ways to interpret this. Either they did this because it was an inside job, which is the current running theory across social media, or that person had made off with significantly amounts of the old Luna to the point that the new Luna just simply significantly enriched him. Now, the current supply of the new Luna is like, I want to say like 1.5 billion. It's extremely constrained if you think about it, because remember, old Luna, as in Lunk, if we go back to that, and you look at how much is being traded, there's already close to, well, just a little bit over $500 billion in volume alone. And that's trillions, right? And that's because they printed and printed and printed and printed and got to 6.5 trillion. So now if the new token has about 1.5 billion, just wrap your head around what that means in terms of the expected volume that we should see on the new Luna at some point. And the numbers for the 24-hour volume appear to bear that out. This is steadily increasing over time, not only as more people get in, but also as we settle in off the buys and the sells. What am I saying? I'm saying that this new Luna has no choice but to go up, but there are a lot of people that hold significant amounts of it. So that means there's going to be some dumps. People that buy in now could end up with a lot of money in the future. We don't know how much and we don't know when. Or it could completely crap out unexpected because it's a new blockchain and it's not saddled by the UST. There's no stable coin on the new Luna. So it's an unknown game. Now let me pause real quick and I'll go through questions. Lunk. This is Man Mac. No, I don't believe that Lunk, aka Luna Classic, is a pump and dump. And the reason I don't believe this is because of the volume. There's too much volume for it to be a pump and dump. It's not possible. There's no way to have significant amounts of pump and dump at this point. However, we need to define pump and dump. To me, a pump and dump is something where it follows a pattern that, like this initial one, which they all do. But if you notice, since then, it's pretty much traded sideways, which is what I would have expected with this amount of volume. Do I think it's ever going to pump and dump again? No, there's too many people in it. What might happen with Lunk is that people just sell it completely and wipe their hands and walk away, which is what happened with Ethereum Classic. People in the initial one, most people in the low-level community, not the wealthy, the low-level, did not want Ethereum to fork. The governance, which was mostly ran by the wealthy, said we're going to go and fork. They forked. Ethereum Classic had some pumps, and certainly it's way higher than when it launched. It launched at pennies and jumped to, I think, $100 or something. But it's nowhere near where Ethereum got to like $4,500. At the same time, most of the people around at that time, in retrospect, said it was a mistake to have done the fork instead of fixing the problem. Ethereum Classic still has the issues, though. It never solved the underlying reason for the fork. Terra is the same way. The Luna Classic has not solved the underlying issue. You still have UST out there that's still hurt. You still have the correlation between UST Classic and Luna Classic. You still have the fact that UST is still dependent on Luna burns. You still have the fact that Luna Classic supply is sky high. Luna Classic hasn't solved the problem. Here's the catch, though. The community has largely supported what we know of as Luna Classic. They support it. The exchanges came out and said, we're going to do burns on this. They changed the transaction fees. They did everything they could because they see there's more community support. And by community, I mean the non-wealthy, supporting Luna Classic to the point that everybody's kind of coming together to kind of get this one back to where it was, to prove to Doe Rug Pull that all you had to do is do the burns. So I theorized when the governance started, I theorized that I believed community sentiment would potentially cause Luna Classic to surpass Luna because of all the shadiness behind the new Luna. That doesn't mean that the new Luna is not going to go to the moon. It's going to have to, because it's constrained. There's not a lot of it. The validators are over there, the wealthy's over there, and it's still yet new. Luna, the new Luna, is going to go up. I can see this when I look at the graphs. I can see that at some point it's going to go up. But I also see in the Classic, it still has this organic support for it that tells me it's not going anywhere, and it has a strong potential to get past what we're dealing with. And here's the thing. If they can figure out just by community support how to get enough fix on the supply issue for Luna Classic has no choice but to go back up. The supply at this point is the only thing holding it back. This means they're going to have to get more burn than mint. How do they do that? I don't have that answer. I don't know. If the exchanges stay on board and they still help the project, it has no choice but to go back up. At the same time, a lot of people might be sitting on millions and millions or billions and billions of Luna, and then they're going to dump it, and then we don't know where it's going to go. There's a lot of uncertainty on Luna Classic because of the supply issue. The supply issue is what creates this question mark in people's minds, because it allowed too many people to hold too many coins at a fraction of the cost. Nobody knows what's going to happen there. I'm simply saying the new Luna, it's going to go up. It's going to have no choice because there's not enough supply for it to be held back. That's where the validators are. That's where the support of the existing, the old, the legacy, and they're going to have to wait to see if they can recoup what they lost in the new. But with the airdrops on the new Luna, there was not a significant amount that was dropped to people. So in terms of volume, we're still early in the game. If you notice, it's just getting close to about hitting 100 million on a billion supply. That's huge. And just it's only been a few hours. It's been less than 12 hours, I believe. And it's already close to 100 million. I don't know. Kunagiro, he made a comment that nobody else agrees with him, and we all know that it's bunk. So I removed that comment because we need to stop spreading that narrative, because let's put it this way. Women absolutely disagree, emphatically disagree, because there's so many differences. There's so many differences in the statement. I can simply go like this or like this and completely debunk the statement made. So I did remove that one. FYI, that's why. And referring to Shibnobi, I don't have any opinion on Shibnobi because Cliff is an idiot, doesn't know what he's doing, and I will never support incompetence. So I know there are people in it that like it, but I will never support incompetent devs. If I could pick and force people together, I would force Cliff from Shibnobi, the cult leader from Satama, the car salesman from Seifu, and car salesman 2.0 from LockPay. I would force them to work together. I'd force them to get together and make the scummiest token they could ever make together as a group. And I believe they'd rip each other off and I'd want to watch it. I would be entertained watching all this incompetence in one token, because at least we would know, we want to corral all the snakes in a pit, right? That's what I see of those. So Shibnobi, I understand people are getting some level of value out of it. Apparently, I will never support incompetence with my money. Thus, I have never invested in that one. So, and then apparently, Kun Agiro has lost a lot of money on Shibnobi, which doesn't surprise me. Now, mind you, apparently Shibnobi did a V2, so it could be that money's sitting over there. I don't know. I never followed it beyond the initial statement. Now, notice, as I just talked and I spoke, and it's only been like 2 minutes, volume now is already well over 100. Do you see what I'm saying? In the new Luna, this one's it's going to go up. People don't understand. It's going to go up. It's not been out but 6 hours, 6.5 hours, it's going to go up. How high? I don't know. When? I don't know. This launched at $1, right? It's already up to 5. That's a pretty rapid rate. It peaked at 12, which we expected, and then it crapped because Doe Rug Pull didn't think to put a mechanic in there to stop significant dumps. And as far as I know, I'm pretty sure it's true, and even on the exchange, it wouldn't matter. There's no like reflections. There's nothing that people would benefit. Like if you think about it, if this was done correctly, what we should have done is said, we know that this one's going to initial pump and dump. So what we should have done is collect all that excessive sell by the way of high sell tax off the initial launch and then enrich everybody else, literally everybody else. Redistribute off the cells, off the pump and dump. Because what that would have done is it would have caused the people who then bought in to the new Luna who had no stake in the old and use that money to help recoup everybody else. But there's a reason I call him Doe Rug Pull. That's not, I know they thought about it. They didn't want to do that because he wanted to enrich himself. And so doing what I'm suggesting, he would have taken money out of his pocket. Man Mac says that there's some Binance that potentially is put on hold. And Binance, of course, is the largest exchange. So it's possible that we're going to see some initial jumps off both tokens. And I know that there's some exchanges that have not even listed the new Luna yet because of issues. Apparently, for those that didn't know, what was happening is many of the exchanges were trying to clarify the tax structure, the airdrop, what that meant, the calculation for the airdrop. The calculation for the airdrop was they built it purposely, Doe Rug Pull, so convoluted and confusing that nobody knew what they really were going to get. And although they could have built a simple calculator, that would, of course, mean that he has the best of intentions. We know that can't be the case because whatever that mirror hacker for 88 million, for him walking away with 2 million of the new Luna fresh out the gate, you already know some sketchiness is going on. You just can't, like, there's so much smoke. We can't prove it, but we see that there's all this scummy behavior, and Doe Rug Pull doesn't come out and defray it or solve it, and he rushed this out the door because he just wants to walk away from what happened before. That rhymes. But here's the thing. At the end of the day, I can guarantee you the new Luna is going to go up. It has no choice but to go up despite the sell pressure. Also because nobody has significant amounts of it other than the super whales. And the super whales aren't excessively selling it right now because they're waiting for it to pump to certain levels. So one of the resistance levels I saw just straight off the jump is $5. Well, that's where it is right now. And it's kind of hovering, and then it went to about 5.5 and then settled back down. So we're already at a new resistance off of $1 launch and a peak of 12. If you look at the trend of where it's going, we're going to be at this resistance for a while some of these, like some of these larger bids are going to flush out. And then we're going to start seeing it start run up again. And we're going to repeat the pattern. Meanwhile, on Classic, anybody who's sitting on Classic, and if you look at the price point for Classic, it's only this much because of the supply that's still remaining. If they can figure out how to get more burned out of the system versus minted into the system, it's going to go right back up too. It's not going to hit the same highs that it once did. That's never, I can guarantee that's never going to happen. I think it hit what, $120, $150 per. There's no way, because of all the people that bought, in some cases, billions of this stuff when it dipped to the very, very bottom and then didn't sell it. So because of people holding it, my point, because they're holding it, there's no way for it to get to that point. Also, because Doe Rug Pull is an idiot, he was trying to send out this burn address in response to people asking for it. I questioned that address because although that appears to be a legitimate fire pit type address, I don't know why he wouldn't have just given the generic. I'm assuming that they didn't create a generic dead wallet on the Terra blockchain, and that's why he did it the way he did it. The problem is that the way he did it, he just said, here you go. And then a scammer came along and duplicated his account down to the T and then put their own address on there. And people were not knowing any better, and they sent their tokens to the scammer. And then people called out Doe Rug Pull and said, well, why did you send out the address? And Doe Rug Pull, being the idiot he is, it said, well, people asked. I mean, I don't know why they wanted, but I figured I'd go and answer. Instead of what he should have done, because clearly he doesn't know how to use Twitter right. Being a millennial, you're supposed to, if you don't want people to do a thing, you tell them, I don't want you to do a thing. If you still want to accommodate the request, you say, I'll give you what you're asking, but I don't think it's a good idea, but here it goes. Instead of just, here you go, and putting people at risk and knowing that people are going to be on the hook. If you look on the Binance Smart Chain, there's got to be at least 20 Luna 2.0 scammers out there, and you're not helping the situation because he's frustrated. And the reason he's frustrated is because nobody liked what he was forcing down the road, because the vast majority of the community didn't want to fork. They wanted to solve Lunk. They wanted to get it back to some level, and they believed with the help of the exchanges that the burns would help get it to that point. And they were so fervent in their belief that they didn't want to just give up and walk away, which is what Do Rug Pull wants, because it's easy for him. It's easy for him to just walk away from a thing and not worry about it and say, okay, now money just shifts over here, magic internet money, by just creating money out of thin air. That's essentially what he did, is create money out of thin air with the airdrops. And because he sent so many airdrops, his delegate, because he got all pissed off when somebody said, you must have told the exchanges to go ahead and list Luna 2.0 right off the gate. Because like Kucoin, for example, Kucoin had the new, it had already renamed the existing Luna to Lunk like almost day one within hours. They then did the airdrop to the new Luna. That took a couple of hours, but it was pretty much fresh off scratch. So they had to have been told in advance, because the exchanges don't just drop a dime and do what you want. If you look at many of the other tokens trying to get on exchanges, sometimes it takes months. But yet for him, all of a sudden, it's just magic internet money spun up out of thin air for people. No, somebody, his delegate, him, whatever, told the exchanges well in advance, probably during the governance vote, this is coming. We're going to go ahead and change it. Just go ahead and queue it up. There's no, these plebeians are not going to be able to stop me. I'm going to do what I'm doing, and then went forward. So these were already ready to go. But the thing is, people inside already knew the game. We already knew the game. We already knew that something sketchy was happening. You just can't prove. You can't prove intent. You can't prove, was he literally trying to rip people off? I say no. Like, I don't think he intentionally is trying to rip people off. I think he's an idiot. Like, there's a big difference here. I think he's an idiot. I think he doesn't know what he's doing. I think he has a big head, largely because of his social media, whatever. He got a big head, and as he got a big head, felt he could do no wrong. It's kind of like this emperor complex with him. And so because he got to this level, now he believes that nothing else he does is wrong, even though the rumor going around, the rumor and innuendo, is that the whole crash was caused by him and a stupid decision he made out of greed. We can't prove it. However, people like Fat Man and others are following the trail of money, and they're seeing mysterious airdrops that are significantly large in size. I called out that the governance was already rigged on its face because it favored the whales, it favored the validators. The air, whatever that one validator is, came out and said this is the wrong answer. So you had smaller validators that said they were being bullied into making the vote to support the Do Rug Pull approach. So now the smaller ones don't have a voice, and they're the voice of the community, and even they're getting suppressed because the governance tool was built to support what Do Rug Pull wanted to do all along, which is why I sat back and I saw other YouTubers say, no, we're going to have the burn. The burn's going to happen. We got it. The community wants the burn. We're going to do the burn. And Mexi saying, if you want us to burn, let's do it. And others saying, let's do it. And small validators saying, let's do the burn. And I kept telling people, no, this is going to fork. There will not be a burn. There might be a burn after they fork. You will have a fork. And people were misreading the governance tool. They didn't understand how to read it. They didn't understand how to read the quorum. They didn't know the rules. They didn't understand the veto and how that worked. And most big, Orion Money held off to the last minute. That's the largest validator. They have like 8% of the vote. They held off to the last minute before putting a vote in. So then I purposely reached out to Orion Money and said, are you going to at least vote one way or the other or abstain? Finally, they came in and they abstained. But the point is, you had this sketchiness because if they had voted yes, it had been foregone conclusion. People didn't know. Everybody was misreading the way the governance is built because the governance, the way that tool's built isn't intuitive to what you need to do to vote. People didn't know. You got to stake your tokens in the dang thing. You can't just hold them. You got to have them staked. If you stake them, your amount of stake governs how much your weighting is. People didn't know that. People didn't know that you have so many whales and their votes off default, right, are going to skew it towards whatever people want. People didn't know that some of the validators were being bullied into voting to what Do Rug Pull wanted. So now there's this hopium spreading around saying, nope, we're going to have our burn. We're going to save. The hashtag Save Terra Luna was floating around, and I'm telling them, you're going to have a fork. you will have a fork. There is no save of the thing. You're going to have a fork. Remember, he had dates ready to go on the proposal. You, as a software developer myself, you don't have hard, fast dates on a thing unless you already built it. If you already built it, that's because you already know it's going forward, because the governance was built to support what he wanted to do. And he had enough influence to push the strongest validators in Wales in that direction. Mind you, many of them would have been enriched by the proposal in the first place because it behooves them to get the fork. If it hit 6.5 trillion, I believe that was the supply that it hit, 6.5 trillion. You're going to have people there that held hundreds of billions of the thing. That means when they did the airdrop, they're already enriched out of the gate, and they're enriched off the old tokens as this one climbs. Lunk. Classic. There was no way it was not going to fork because you're basically enriching both sides. In a way, this whole situation with the fork is very similar in concept, although this one's broken, similar in concept to what Pulse Chain is trying to do, which is that it would basically replicate what you had over there, over here, and then you would have essentially the world's largest airdrop and all that. It's very similar, other than the rug pull changed the rules a little bit by decreasing the amount of supply, which decreased how much you would get, almost like a reverse split. Now you're forced to sit back and wait on these two guys and see what's going to happen. And then the uncertainty principle plays in of Luna Classic. And will this keep going up? The volume go up on Luna Classic right now, 700 billion in volume. It peaked at somewhere around 1.5 trillion, if my memory serves me. Okay, it's half down. Even though it's half down and the price is down, it's largely trending in a direction that tells us that it might go back up. We don't know. Are people going to sell off? Are they going to dump and say, screw this, I'm not being in this garbage, I'm just going to, or are they going to arbitrage over to Luna, the new Luna? Or are they just going to wipe their hands of it and walk away? I'll say this. There's also possible evidence that the Luna, the new Luna, is not actually excluded from the LFG, which is the foundation guard, because they said that their wallet's going to be removed from the airdrop for this business. Fat Man released some notes that were very concerning, saying, well, it's not really true because, yeah, they did exclude that wallet, but then they were using these other shell wallets to basically still enrich this. There's a lot of smoke behind the whole process. And the nature of wallets and all that stuff make it really difficult to trace the money trail. And you got to ask yourself, if you were in Doe rug pull situation, obviously you wouldn't do this. But my point is, if you were in that situation, the last thing you should want to do is create more smoke, create more controversy, create more things pointing at you, create more ammunition. Troubling situation. I don't know where it goes. I don't know where we end up. I don't know what it means. I don't have the solution on this one. So I'm going to continue watching it, from a distance and see where we go from here. I will just say, from my perspective, if anybody's in the thing, something's going to happen with both of these, but I don't know what. All I can tell you is that Luna Classic, its volume is increasing, and New Luna, its volume is increasing as well. I don't know what that means, though, and I don't know where we go from here. My summary thoughts on this business, I think, and you're welcome, man, Mac, and something went weird with my computer, so if I cut out for a brief, all I was saying is I don't know what happens with this whole business with Luna and Luna Classic and all this. I can only tell you that the volume on both sides appears to be increasing. It's a race now, and so you're seeing arbitrage, you're seeing some weird things with the money movement. We knew there's some sketchy drops. We knew there's some smoke. We don't know what any of it means, and nobody can say for certain. I'm not going to present an investment strategy. I'm not going to prevent anything other than to say, today, it appears as the volumes are going up. Luna, the new one, is still early phase, and so it has a lot of room to grow. Luna Classic is on the rebuild, but it's still harmed by the UST, the presence of UST, and the excessive supply. However, there is an organic community desire to burn it and get it back to a point of stability. What's going to win out? Is it going to be the shiny newness of the new Luna and the fact that developers are leaping over there? Or is it going to be that the loyalty of Luna Classic and people still buying it over there and maintaining their positions and possibly increasing their positions? Consider also that the price of the Classic Luna might be more appealing to certain investors as kind of a FOMO, right? It's like, okay, well, it's going to stay a thing and its price is down here. So I could buy in at a really good price point and just kind of let it grow and see what happens. All of this is open. It's open. Luna Classic is essentially a meme coin at this point. It's essentially a meme coin. But what does that mean, right? Does that mean that it's able to grow? It can. Does that mean it will? Don't know. Does that mean that people FOMO out of other meme tokens and go into this one? Don't know. Does that mean that when Ethereum and everything else, while they're crapping, people leap over to here because it's a separate blockchain and they decide to buy into it? Don't know. A lot of uncertainty. Biggest gamble, probably the biggest gamble in all of cryptocurrency right now. But you are, if you're watching it, even if you're just watching it, you are at the intro phases of what was going on during the Ethereum fork to Ethereum Classic. It's the same situation. The caveat, and I'll wrap up with this, it's in reverse because at that time, the fork turned out to be the popular opinion and they went forward with it. But in hindsight, they regretted it because they realized that all they did was cause damage instead of fixing the problem. The Ethereum Classic blockchain did succeed financially because it went from pennies all the way up to like $60, $70, whatever. So it did financially benefit people that held the line. But Ethereum Classic never got anywhere close to where main Ethereum went because Ethereum was the new shiny. Like, you see what I'm saying? It's the same. We're in that same mental decision process. You have to decide. It's a crossroads. Are you going to stick with one or both and hold the line? We can say the volume's going, but it's too early to really know what's going to happen. Is it possible Luna Classic gets attacked? I don't buy there was an attack, but regardless, is it possible Luna Classic craps again? That's a risk. Is UST always going to be a failure? That's a strong risk. Are people ever going to get their money back? Like people that are still holding the old and they're just waiting for it to get back to at least $1 to then dump out of it? That's a risk. It's a crazy situation. I mean, I wish we could see Joe Rug Pull completely step down and say, you know what? I'm not cut out for this garbage. I was too much hyped. I got too much in it, too much in the bubble. I need to get away, hide on some Barbados or something because I don't want the feds coming after my ass and I need to get away from this stuff. I would love to see him get out, get out of the way, leave. Don't even get your name out of the media and go away. You know, just like Jake Steed did when he just ran away and hid off in the jungle somewhere. I want to see him get out of the way and then let these two tokens, coins, blockchains, fight it out. That's what I think is the best path forward. Let the community decide what's the right way forward. History has told us that the Classic is going to struggle. This is different, though, because it's in reverse. The community did not want the fork. The community did not want the new shiny this time. Does that mean that the community goes towards the Classic this time? It's all a gamble. Anyhow, if anybody has any other questions, I'll hang out for a minute or two or three or so odd for any other questions that may come up. Let me check over on Discord or rather, not Discord. Okay, Twitch. Twitch has none. Welcome, Man Mac. Twitch, so we're good there. Twitch. All right. So I'll go ahead and wrap up. And final thought is simply, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to tell you how. I'm not going to recommend, suggest, or propose anything to you because, number one, there's too many populations, right? You got people that were in the Luna Classic that sold at a loss because they didn't know what was going on, right? And so they're wrecked, and there's not really much that can be done. They're not going to be made whole because they sold. There are people that are still holding on Luna Classic in the hopes that it recover because they're nervous about the new Luna and they're uncertain. There are people that are holding Luna Classic because they don't want to enrich the new. Like there's all these different populations of people and everybody's motivation is different. That's why I'm not going to recommend because I don't know what situation anybody falls in. I can tell you only the data that I see, which is the same data everybody sees. Luna Classic's volume is increasing again, but it's down by half, but it's increasing back again. Luna, the new Luna's volume is increasing. It launched and it has significant volume as a part of a launch. The vast majority of devs leapt over to the new Luna, but you could have new devs show up on the Luna Classic. I believe that's still a viable thing. I don't know why anybody would do it because of the existing issue that's still there in the connection between the Classic Luna and UST, and that's not been solved. UST is still insolvent. Still, I believe, 8 cents, 10 cents, whatever crazy. The peg's still not there. It's not going to be fixed. So I know there was a proposal to try to fix UST. I don't know if there's an appetite to do it from Doe Rug Pull. And that's a whole different population of people, are the people that they never touched Luna at all, but they were using UST because they believed it to be stable. They believed in the algorithmic. You also have solutions that were built where the liquidity backing was UST, and they lost a lot. So then how do you make them whole? How do you fix that one? They can't, there's nothing they can do because there is no UST on the new Terra. So there's a lot of smoke behind this one. And I personally didn't agree with the fork simply because I didn't think it would solve the problem. I believed, in my opinion, from just looking at it, the burn had a better chance in a long-term state to resolve it. The pushback I got, mostly from validators, was they weren't going to work for free. They wanted more money. My counter argument to them was the only reason you're getting paid after it crashed was FOMO buys, and you're probably getting way more money off the FOMO buys than you ever got when the thing was at the peak, because there was significant amounts of FOMO buys when it dropped to pair nothing. Like, you almost enticed more people because it crashed, and you got enriched off that. So you would have continued to been enriched if they had done the burn, because now the supply goes down and the green candle shows up and people FOMO into it, and you're going to reap the rewards. They're thinking short term, not long term, in how their enrichment happens. The enrichment happens based on volume. Period. Every single transaction is paying them. As the volume goes up, you have more transactions, which should lend itself to then more money to you as a validator. That's a long-term thought process, though. You got to think about the long-term impacts of doing what they're saying. The burn would take time. Nobody disagrees. It would take arguably years for the burn to have an effect because of them printing money out of thin air, as CZ Binance called out. I don't think that's a good argument for why you then just say quit and give up and say, whatever, I'm just not going to do anything. If that's the way they do it, then that's the way they do it. Here we are. So I would say just kind of sit back and watch, and let's see if there's something that comes of Luna Classic and something that comes from the new Luna. And at this point, it's going to be a race to the top and a race to the bottom. I do think Luna Classic's going to be around. I don't think it's going to go away. I don't think it's going to die. I think it's always going to have its fervent supporters that are not going to let it go, either because they believe in the vision of what it was doing, or they believe that they can recoup it and recover it and solve the underlying issue by way of the burn. But if they don't have the exchanges supporting the burn, it's not going to go anywhere because there's not enough. That they hold the vast majority of the supply at this point. So anyway, thank you for watching live. If you watched live and you watched after the fact, it's a whole fiasco, and I don't know where it goes. Nobody really does. All we can do is kind of watch it. It's a race. Luna's early. I would say give it a chance. I'm not going to make a recommendation beyond let's give it a chance and let the community decide which one's going to be the winner. At the end of the day, neither's going to die, I don't think. But time will tell. Thank you.